Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Healing Conversations with Gloria Liebecker and Ingrid Gundy. And today we're going to be talking about living in lockdown. Kind of feels like the biggest topic and the most important topic to us personally at the moment, and we're imagining for a lot of you as well. So we're just going to be talking very transparently and openly about the mix of things that we're experiencing and what we're noticing as we move into this new way of living.
And so it's also, I find it so helpful, Ingrid, when you and I get to have a chat and have a conversation about what it's like to be living life the way we are, to notice how it nourishes me. Because here we are on opposite sides of the world, but our whole world is really facing this pandemic. And our different countries, each are handling it maybe slightly differently, but we are all experiencing it together. And in some ways, I believe it's really giving us an opportunity to take the time to really unpack it. I know that's been happening for me here.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's really, I suppose, like all of our conversations, it's lovely for me too to have space set aside to really attend to all of the different dimensions of what this experience is like, because I know I've been noticing, day to day shifts in how I'm doing with it, and which part of it is kind of most at the forefront of my experience, or which part I'm struggling with. And to have these times where you and I get together where we can actually talk about that and really pay attention to it is so valuable. And it's really important to me to have a sense of our ongoing connection as well. Because, in all of this talk of social distancing, actually, yes to physical distancing, as many people have said, but social distancing is the last thing that we should be doing or allowing to happen if we can possibly avoid it.
Yeah, that's something I hear from the people I'm working with. And so the one-on-one clients as well as the small groups, it's so important to have those opportunities to come together and to be welcomed, to be heard, and in the experience of whatever it's like, in order to have the experience of being felt and heard and seen and mattering, or even recognizing ourselves in others' conversations.
Because one of the things that's come up a lot in the again, both one-on-one sessions and the small group work for me has been people realizing that a part of what they're feeling is grief. Not because necessarily they've lost someone to COVID-19, but because our whole world has changed in an unimaginably short time. And I think maybe people haven't recognized that some of what they're experiencing is grief, because it hasn't occurred to them that we might be profoundly grieving for livelihoods lost, connections with others that are lost, people who have lost the easy connection with their workmates, people realizing that although online connection is great, and they thought that actually they weren't that
impacted,
it wasn't that important to them to actually physically be in the presence of others. They're realizing that it really, really is.
It is.
And I suppose the potential loss of the futures that people have imagined for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
we can experience enormous grief about that too. And so coming together with others and talking about what we're experiencing helps us to go, oh, okay, so
Yeah.
others are feeling this too, and this is grief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It is. And then there's, along with that, in order to even move through the grief process, we
mm,
can go into some raging too, some anger
yeah,
or
yeah,
fear,
yeah,
panic. I
yeah,
mean, those are all very, very normal emotions to experience through this kind of a
mm,
crisis.
mm,
And
mm,
and I'm thinking too that's I'm that people are more sensitive and maybe not aware that they're more sensitive
yeah,
because our limbic system is very alert to our environment, more so
yeah,
than most of us give our limbic
yeah,
system credit, our emotional
yeah,
alarm system.
yeah,
And it's picking up on all of the energies that are around us. And if people are across the gamut feeling these really strong
mm,
vibrations, then it's
mm,
impacting the world with that too.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and so we have um, experiences not just within our bubbles, or that we're in lockdown with, but with everybody else, um,
Mm-hmm.
of what sometimes is called emotional contagion, which I don't really like
Mm-hmm.
because it makes it sound like a disease. And of
Yeah.
course it's not. It's our limbic system doing what our limbic
Yeah.
system is evolved to do, which is, as you say, to be really, really sensitive, not just to physical threats, but to um, emotional flavors
Yes.
uh, in our environment. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And yeah, and that's so important to start to notice that.
mm,
And when we take the time to be with our experience in relationship with another that
mm,
has developed the skill sets to actually reflect that back and hold that container with care.
mm,
So the care circuitry, I believe, is a beautiful antidote. It's like the comfort and the warmth
yeah,
and the resonant field that
yeah,
can welcome all of those emotions.
mm,
And
mm,
so one of my concerns has been for those that are holding this space for others to make sure they also are having the support that they need,
yeah,
because we need to replenish ourselves. We need to
mm,
actually stay connected
mm,
with that divine source energy in
mm,
order to allow ourselves to stay in the flow. And I know
mm.
for myself, the place I got knocked off my center the quickest
Yeah,
was talking to my youngest daughter, who's pregnant
mm,
with her first daughter.
mm,
And she was going
mm,
to be coming next month, and we were going to have a baby shower and celebrate. And it's had to be canceled.
yeah,
And I could hear the disappointment for her, and there was a
mm,
disappointment for everyone. And then the following right on it is the following month in June, I was going to get to go be with her as she prepared to give birth.
yeah,
And now it's possible that may not happen either. And so there was this
mm,
tremendous well of grief that just, ooh, I could feel
mm,
it.
mm,
But to hold that, and while I'm on the phone with her so that I don't overwhelm her system with that,
yeah, yeah,
but I recognized just how important it was to allow me to feel what I felt, because it was such a strong love.
mm,
And it did feel like such a loss.
yeah,
My
yeah,
heart felt broken open with it, with
mm,
the ache.
mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
and to allow myself to even, I don't know, I think it's so important to sit in that pool for a while, because we
I
can get in a
agree.
hurry to move through it.
Yep, I agree. And I've really been observing that, and I want to come back to that, but I want to first of all really acknowledge, how long you've been looking forward to the baby shower visit and to going up to be there for the birth
Mm-hmm.
of your granddaughter. Hmm.
Yeah, Amelia Jean.
Amelia Jean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm still purchasing my tickets and with insurance in case
Yeah.
there's something that happens. Then, because at some point, I imagine I will get to venture back up to Alaska to visit
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get to nurture both my daughter and my granddaughter and my
Yeah.
son-in-law.
Mm.
And yeah, it was really important to take the time
Mm.
to acknowledge just how much it means.
Yeah.
It also really brought me, though, in tune to my ancestors.
Right. Huh.
Because I
Yeah.
thought about that. I thought, well, I'm not the first grandmother that's experienced this.
Mm.
Because, back when my parents were little,
Mm.
or my grandparents were going through having children, if they had moved far away, they weren't able most of the
No.
time to go be with
No.
one another. They had to actually write a letter and
Mm.
hope the Pony Express could get it through, or whatever they did back then, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
where with the
Yeah.
ancestors you are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
communities have evolved and grown and
Yeah.
changed
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. And I love that anecdote, because I suppose what it reminds me of is that when we take the time to sit in the pool
Mm-hmm.
of loss, um, without rushing to push through it, and I really want to talk about that piece because I'm seeing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
in different ways, and my sense is, for myself, it's very unhelpful, and I think for most people it's really unhelpful to kind of want to push through too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
um, but what I'm hearing is that, and sitting with that sense of loss and love,
Mm-hmm.
um, you were, in a kind of surprising way, connected to a bigger life force,
Mm-hmm. It's
and
like
that
a
ancestral connection, and,
mm-hmm.
and sense of, yes, we are all
Mm-hmm.
in this big process of evolution that's unfolding. Mm.
Yeah, it was actually like a constellation, you know. And we do that work with the horses. It was because when
Yeah.
I sat with it, it brought memories up of when I was a young woman that was going to
Mm.
birth my children,
Mm.
and of which I've birthed 5, and
Mm.
the different experiences with each one, and how meaningful it was when, with my first children, my mother did come with my
Yeah.
first baby, and I learned so much, and I was really
Yeah.
open to that because I was
Yeah.
so naive. And then just, and so it made me think of my mother, and then when she
Mm.
had me, and the story of how that
Mm.
was,
Mm.
and then even when she was born and what that was like, because my mother actually was
Mm.
born in a sod house. So I mean, that's quite different back in
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
And her mother
Yeah.
came from England. So
Mm.
it's like there's
Mm.
it
Mm.
changes.
Mm.
And
It does.
to tap into that was comforting for my heart. It's like my
Yeah.
mother's heart, mother me, was mothered by all those generations of women of love.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I guess when we can sit with loss and grief and the love that is always at the heart of grief,
Mm.
then it naturally does reconnect us often in surprising ways
Yeah.
to the flow of love through life
Yeah.
over time. Mm. In a way
So
that
true.
had you just kind of tried to rationalize yourself out of it, you wouldn't have got to experience, right? That would have been a
Exactly.
very different process, and had a very different result. Mm.
Yeah, very true. And
Mm.
so kind of bringing that back into that piece that
Mm.
we're both very alive with around when
Mm.
we're holding that space for others and they're wanting to push through it,
Yeah.
it's a natural reaction that us human beings might have in order
Mm.
to try and avoid the pain or to minimize it.
Yeah.
is we shift left and we
Yeah.
stop being in relationship with our own
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. That's right.
And we might try and get super busy, get on with it. What's the
Mm-hmm.
next step? Want to check that box?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking a lot about that shifting left um, um, tendency that that we do have as humans to want to get out of um, the painful experience that
Mhm.
we don't know how to be with, and
Yeah,
we've
that's
maybe
it
never
right
been
there.
held in. Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't know how. It's
yeah,
that we don't know how. And it's in the being of being with it that we discover the how.
yeah. And also wanting to really acknowledge that um, if we've never had the experience of actually being held in a safe container with that
Mm.
emotion, of course we're going to be very afraid that it will be overwhelming, that if we go
Mm-hmm.
there we'll drown,
Yeah.
that the pool is not a pool we can sit in, it's actually a horrible whirlpool that's going to suck us under. Yeah,
Yes. A
yeah,
sinkhole.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
And and so I want to stress too how important it is that we reach out for support,
yeah.
that we don't try to just get on with it and
Mm,
stuff it,
mm,
because that's when we actually create trauma within us, when
yeah,
we don't allow our experience to receive the support it needs.
yeah, yeah. And I've been kind of observing both sort of in myself and in others around me, it's people I'm working with, or just friends that I'm talking to about what's happening for them, what they're doing or feeling tempted to do in this
Mm-hmm.
time, and kind of reflecting on, is this a shift left to get away from a painful or uncomfortable feeling, or is it something else going on? And I was thinking about um, we were talking about anger, about
Mm-hmm.
about rage as one very common and natural expression of grief. But I was thinking, that when we go into blaming,
Mm-hmm.
angry blaming of whomever for doing it, either for the government doing it wrong, or other people doing lockdown wrong,
Mm-hmm.
that can be very much driven by that shift left away from our own fear, our own um, worry, our own grief, sense of loss. Um, that, yeah,
Well,
blaming is a left hemisphere kind of strategy to get away from those feelings, and it's a reflection of struggling to be in them.
yeah, I'm what came up for me as I was listening to that, it's like there's that continuum of energies, and we can
Mm,
have that fear reaction, and it can send us then shunting us into that panic grief.
mm,
The panic, we can get stuck in the
mm,
panic.
mm,
And so
mm.
that fear and panic, I mean, I'm guessing that's where all the toilet paper went. Um, you
We
know,
could do a whole conversation on on the toilet paper thing, right?
yeah.
What is that?
And then the higher frequency is the anger. It's like, well,
Yeah.
why'd you take all the toilet paper?
Mm.
There should be enough for everybody. And it's an
Yeah.
attempt to actually
Yeah.
integrate the information
Yeah.
and to be empowered to take an action that is life
Mm.
serving. But if we get
Mm.
stuck in it, it
Yes.
can be
Yes.
it can be a trap.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is a lot of people
Yeah.
are feeling trapped.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, one of the other things that seems to be happening for many people is that um, in being at home with, in New Zealand in any way, in any case, many of the things that that we've normally been able to do to kind of sometimes distract ourselves or get away from feelings that are not so comfortable. You know, a lot of those choices aren't available at the moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't, a lot of exercise options are off the table.
Mm.
So for people for whom exercise was, you know, and vigorous exercise away from home was a really
Mm-hmm.
important part of getting through the week or the day,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of those options are not available anymore.
Yeah.
And people can't go to the pub.
Mm.
People can't go out, you know, to a local cafe and have a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
People can't shop, not even
Yeah.
online for anything that's not an essential. And
Mm.
so a whole lot of um, ways that people have developed to um, regulate themselves, you know, are not actually available at the moment. And so feeling trapped, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
having a sense that a lot of the things that enabled life to feel manageable for people are not available now. It's really natural that people would feel trapped and stuck and as though all their freedom's been taken away,
Yeah.
and that's very frightening. If that's been your way of keeping
Mm-hmm.
yourself regulated
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, and your
Mm-hmm.
nervous system doesn't have alternatives, then
Yeah.
that's really scary.
It
Yeah.
can be.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
Because those are our coping mechanisms.
yeah.
And then we find we're not coping. Then
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so I want to hold a lot of care for the people that are finding themselves in a situation where it's not safe
That's right.
because
Yeah.
they're being forced to stay home,
Mm,
and maybe for families that have had both
mm,
parents needing to work outside
yeah.
of the home, and now
Yeah.
they're both at home, and now they have small children,
Mm,
and they've relied on others to care for the children so they could
mm,
do what they needed to do. And so now the children's lives are disrupted as well because they're used
mm,
to going to a place where they had a routine. So the
yeah.
routines are all mixed up. And
Yeah.
that can cause a lot of fear and panic and
Mm,
danger.
mm,
And so it's really important to have resources and
mm,
know how to reach for those resources
yeah.
for the
Yeah.
support that we need.
Yeah. And I guess what I also want to acknowledge, you know, which is coming through and, you know, even in the early statistics here, is that there are a lot of people for whom being confined to their home is actually physically unsafe
Yes.
because they are confined to a home with their abuser.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I am grateful that I've also seen, and I'm not sure how it is in New Zealand, but I'm imagining there's similarities because we seem to actually
Mm,
experience a lot of the same things on the other side of the
mm,
world.
mm,
But there are so many others in the world that are rising to the challenge to make sure there are provisions,
mm,
um, so that people have resources. So there's a lot of programs that are being offered free
yeah,
online.
yeah.
So I guess the cracks or the places you might slip out is when people don't have access to online,
Mm,
because not everyone does.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And I think there's also, I suppose that, you know, I love that there's so much provision of resources happening, you know, and often for free. And it also strikes me that it's really important, you know, to remember that this isn't a time for um, vigorous self improvement, you know, like because Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
because that's got a bit of a pushing through kind of tendency as
it
well.
does,
Hey,
especially the vigorous
um,
part.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So I was sort of thinking, for me, the resources that feel
Mm.
genuinely supportive right now are
Ah,
really gentle.
mhm.
They're really gentle. They're actually about supporting me um, to be where I am
Mhm.
rather than kind of pushing forward into some better version of myself that
Yeah,
that might somehow be possible through spending weeks
yeah,
shut at home. Yeah, that feels really important. um,
for me too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So it's a practice of being able to be present to
yeah,
what is.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Well, that will be a really lovely conversation that I'd like us to be able to have, Ingrid.
Yes, that'll be our next conversation, I think. Hey, talking about what practices actually really support
Hmm.
being present to
Hmm.
what is. Mm.
And if people would like to explore that with you personally, how would
Mm.
they reach out to you? How can they find you?
Well, as always, via my website, which is ingridgunby.com, or same website, potent.co.nz, either. And you can send me an email or give me a call, and we can catch up online.
Hmm.
How about you, Gloria?
The same as you can reach me through my website at healingyoursanctuary.com,
Mm.
and you can reach out and schedule a free consultation or join a small group,
Mm.
because it's really nice to have community that you can count
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank
sure
you so
is.
much. Yes, I love the community we create here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Me too.
Yeah, okay.